First Contact Protocol. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the UES Pioneer, watching the stars drift past on the main display. Her fingers drummed against the smooth surface of her captain's chair as she reviewed the mission briefing for the 100th time. This was it. Humanity's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization. Everything had to go perfectly. The Pioneer was Earth's finest exploration vessel, built with the most advanced technology humanity could create. Its gleaming hull reflected the light of distant stars, and its engines hummed with quiet efficiency. Elena felt proud to command such a ship, but she also felt the weight of representing her entire species in this crucial moment. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her science station, her face showing concern. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple vessels approaching our position. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." She paused, checking her readings again. "There are 12 ships, and the smallest one is 3 times our size." Elena nodded, trying to keep her expression calm. The Nexi Collective had agreed to this meeting, but their fleet was clearly meant to show their power. Each alien ship had a design that seemed to flow like liquid metal, with surfaces that shifted color in the light. Strange energy patterns danced across their hulls, and some vessels appeared to generate their own gravitational fields. Communications Officer James Wright turned from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. They're requesting to establish contact." His voice carried a mixture of excitement and nervousness that Elena understood completely. "Put it through," Elena ordered, straightening in her chair. The main display flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face that made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. Admiral Zix of the Nexi Collective was tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved beneath the surface in complex patterns, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated in ways human ears weren't designed to hear. "I am Admiral Zix. You are the humans who requested this audience with the Collective." Elena stood, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Admiral, I'm Captain Vasquez of the United Earth Ship Pioneer. We come seeking peaceful relations and mutual understanding between our civilizations." The alien admiral's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "Peaceful relations. How refreshing. Most species we encounter either flee in terror or attack us immediately. You humans appear to be different." He gestured, and holographic displays appeared around him showing images of Earth, its cities, and its people. "We have been observing your species for some time now. You have progressed remarkably quickly from your primitive beginnings." Dr. Kim whispered urgently to Elena. "Captain, their scanning technology is incredibly advanced. They're reading our ship's systems in real time, and I can't block their sensors." Elena kept her attention on Admiral Zix while processing this information. "We're honored by your interest in humanity, Admiral. We hope this meeting can be the beginning of a beneficial relationship for both our peoples." Zix's light patterns shifted to what the humans somehow understood was a more serious expression. "That remains to be seen, Captain Vasquez. The galaxy is a dangerous place, full of species that cannot coexist peacefully. The Nexi Collective has maintained order in this region of space for over 50,000 years. We have done so by being very careful about which species we allow to expand beyond their home systems." The bridge of the Pioneer fell quiet as the implications of those words sank in. Elena felt her heart rate increase, but she kept her voice steady. "Are you saying humanity needs your permission to explore space?" "Not permission exactly," Zix replied. "More like evaluation. We must determine whether your species has the wisdom and restraint necessary to be part of the galactic community. Your technological development has been impressive, but technology without wisdom leads to chaos and destruction." Engineer David Martinez looked up from his station with worry clear on his face. "Captain, their ships are moving into formation around us. They're not taking hostile positions yet, but they're definitely surrounding us." Elena could see the Nexi vessels on her tactical display, their alien forms creating a complex pattern around the Pioneer. Admiral, I hope you understand that we view being surrounded as a potentially hostile action. Zix's patterns shifted again. Captain, your vessel is impressive by human standards, but it would take our entire fleet approximately 12 seconds to reduce it to component atoms. If we intended hostility, this conversation would already be over. We are simply taking precautions. Dr. Kim's instruments began registering massive energy buildups across the Nexi fleet. Captain, they're charging weapons systems. Power levels are off our scales completely. Elena felt sweat form on her forehead despite the ship's climate control. Admiral, we came here in good faith. We're not a threat to you or your collective. That, Zix said with what seemed like genuine regret, remains to be determined. Your species has shown remarkable ingenuity and aggression throughout your history. You wage war with each other over resources, territory, and ideology. You consume your planet's resources at an unsustainable rate. You create weapons capable of destroying yourselves multiple times over. These are not the characteristics of a species ready for galactic citizenship. James Wright turned from his communication station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from their weapons. Whatever they're planning to do, they have enough firepower to crack a moon. Elena kept her eyes on Admiral Zix, knowing that the next few minutes would determine humanity's future. Admiral, every species has growing pains. Humanity is learning to be better, to work together, to protect our world instead of destroying it. We're not perfect, but we're trying to improve. The alien admiral's light patterns shifted to what looked like sadness. Captain Vasquez, I do not doubt your sincerity or your hopes for your species. However, the galaxy has seen too many civilizations that believed they could change, that believed they could overcome their destructive impulses. Most of them are now nothing but radioactive dust clouds and broken worlds. The Nexi ships moved closer, their weapon systems glowing with barely contained energy. Elena could see her crew becoming more nervous, their hands hovering over emergency controls and defense systems that would be useless against such overwhelming force. We have a choice to make, Zix continued. We can allow humanity to continue expanding into space, risking that you will eventually become a threat to established civilizations. Or we can contain your species to your home system until you prove you have evolved beyond your destructive nature. The decision must be made now. Elena felt the weight of her entire species' future on her shoulders. How long would this containment last? What would we need to prove to you? Perhaps 1,000 years, Zix replied calmly. Perhaps 10,000. The collective is patient. We will wait until your species demonstrates true wisdom and peace, not just the temporary cooperation born of necessity. Engineer Martinez shook his head in disbelief. 1,000 years. Admiral, you're talking about imprisoning an entire species based on the possibility that we might cause problems in the future. Zix turned his attention to Martinez. Young human, we have seen species far more promising than yours fall to their worst impulses. The Krathan Empire seemed peaceful and wise for 3,000 years before they began consuming other civilizations. The Vorth Confederacy created beautiful art and philosophy for millennia before they developed weapons that could destroy stars. We will not allow such tragedies to repeat themselves. Dr. Kim looked at her sensors with growing alarm. Captain, they're not just charging weapons. They're generating some kind of containment field around our entire solar system. If they activate it, nothing will be able to leave or enter Earth's system. Elena felt desperation growing in her chest. Admiral, please reconsider. Humanity deserves the chance to prove itself through actions, not imprisonment. We've already begun working together as a species. We've started healing our planet. We've reached out to you in peace instead of preparing for war. All commendable, Zix acknowledged, but insufficient. The risk is too great. Captain Vasquez, I want you to understand that this decision brings me no joy. Your species shows promise, and in time you may indeed become worthy of full galactic citizenship. But that time is not now. The energy buildup around the Nexi fleet reached critical levels. Alina could see on her displays that they were preparing to deploy the containment field that would trap humanity in their home system for centuries or millennia. "Admiral," Alina said desperately, "what if we agreed to voluntary restrictions? What if we accepted monitoring and guidance from the collective while we prove ourselves?" Zix's light patterns showed what might have been consideration. "An interesting proposal, Captain. However, voluntary agreements can be broken when they become inconvenient. The containment field cannot be circumvented by changes in political will or leadership." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of equipment and the quiet beeping of various systems. Alina looked around at her crew, seeing the same helplessness in their faces that she felt in her heart. Humanity's first contact with advanced alien life was about to become their last contact with the galaxy beyond their solar system. Then Dr. Kim's instruments began registering something impossible. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with confusion and excitement, "I'm detecting a massive spatial distortion approximately 50,000 kilometers from our position. It's like space itself is being torn open." On the main display, the stars began to ripple and bend. A darkness formed that was deeper than the vacuum of space itself, growing larger and more defined with each passing second. Both human and Nexi sensors were going crazy, registering energy patterns that defied every known law of physics. Admiral Zix's crystalline features showed the first sign of genuine concern Alina had seen. "What is this? Our sensors cannot identify the source of this distortion." The tear in space grew wider, its edges glowing with colors that had no names. From within the opening came sounds that somehow reached through the vacuum itself, deep resonant tones that made everyone present feel an instinctive fear. The Nexi fleet began shifting formation, their weapons turning toward this new unknown threat. Then, from the impossible hole in reality, came a ship that made both humans and aliens stare in wonder and terror. The vessel that emerged was enormous, easily dwarfing even the largest Nexi battleship. But its size was not what made it frightening. The ship looked like it had been built from the wreckage of 100 different vessels, welded together without regard for aesthetics or conventional design. Parts of its hull seemed to be made of materials that shifted between solid and liquid states. Other sections appeared transparent, showing glimpses of interior spaces that seemed far too large for the external dimensions. Most disturbing of all, parts of the ship seemed to exist in multiple places at once, creating visual paradoxes that hurt to look at directly. Dr. Kim stared at her instruments in complete bewilderment. "Captain, my sensors are reporting that the ship is simultaneously 2,000 meters long and 20,000 meters long. Both readings are coming from the same scanners. This shouldn't be possible." Alina watched as the mysterious vessel settled into what appeared to be normal space, though the area around it continued to ripple with impossible distortions. Strange lights moved across its hull in patterns that seemed almost alive, and sections of the ship faded in and out of visibility like mirages. Then a voice came across all communication channels, speaking in clear English with a tone that was both friendly and somehow deeply unsettling. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the UES Paradox. I couldn't help but notice you folks were having a bit of a disagreement out here. Mind if I join the conversation?" The impossible ship. Alina felt her breath catch in her throat. The voice was unmistakably human, but there was something underneath it that made her skin crawl. It sounded like a man speaking from an impossible distance, even though the transmission was crystal clear. James Wright looked up from his communication station with confusion written across his face. "Captain, that ship isn't in any of our databases. The UES Paradox doesn't exist in our fleet records, and the signal is coming from everywhere at once." Admiral Zix's crystalline features had shifted to what Alina was beginning to recognize as fear. His light patterns were flickering rapidly as he spoke. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself properly and explain your presence in this sector. Also explain how you arrived here using technology that violates fundamental laws of physics." Captain Chen's voice came back, still maintaining that unsettling friendly tone. "Well now, Admiral, that's an interesting way to greet someone who just showed up to help. As for how we got here, let's just say we took a shortcut through some places most folks prefer to avoid. The Paradox moved closer to the Nexi fleet, and as it did, strange things began happening to the alien ships. Their weapon systems started giving contradictory readings. Navigation computers began reporting that they were simultaneously in multiple star systems. Some crew members on the Nexi vessels started seeing things that weren't there, while others found themselves unable to see things that were clearly visible. Engineer Martinez watched his instruments with growing alarm. "Captain, that ship is affecting local space-time in ways I've never seen. Reality itself seems to be becoming unstable around it." Dr. Kim was running every scan she could think of, but her equipment kept giving impossible results. "Captain, the hull appears to be made of materials that don't exist in our periodic table. Some sections are emitting radiation that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics. And Captain," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper, "some parts of that ship are older than our solar system." Admiral Zix had apparently heard enough. His fear was transforming into desperate anger, the light patterns beneath his crystalline skin flashing in rapid, agitated sequences. "I don't care what technology you possess, human. This is Nexi space, and you will submit to our authority or be destroyed. All ships, target the unknown vessel. Maximum firepower." The Nexi fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy cannons that could melt asteroids sent continuous streams of superheated plasma toward the Paradox. Missile systems launched waves of explosives capable of cracking moons. Exotic weapons operating on principles beyond human understanding sent invisible death racing through space. Every weapon found its target. The space around the mysterious human ship filled with explosions bright enough to overload optical sensors. The energy release was so massive that both the Pioneer and the Nexi vessels had to strengthen their shields just to protect themselves from the backwash. When the light faded and the energy dissipated, everyone expected to see debris floating in space. Instead, they witnessed something that challenged their understanding of reality itself. The Paradox was completely undamaged. More than that, the weapons fire hadn't disappeared. Instead, every beam of plasma, every missile, every burst of exotic energy hung motionless in space around the ship like sculptures made of frozen fire. The attacks had simply stopped moving, suspended in time as if the universe itself had pressed a pause button. Captain Chen's voice came across the communication channels again, and now there was definite amusement in his tone. "Well, that was rather rude, Admiral. Your weapons are quite impressive for this part of the galaxy. Unfortunately for you, they're designed to work under normal physical laws. The Paradox operates under different principles." Elena felt her mouth go dry. "Different principles. The laws of physics, Captain Vasquez," Chen replied, apparently hearing her question despite the fact that she hadn't opened a channel. "They're more like suggestions where we come from. Now, Admiral Zix, I believe you were in the process of threatening a diplomatic vessel. That's considered poor manners in most civilized societies." Admiral Zix was frantically giving orders to his crew, demanding they fire again, demanding explanations for how their weapons had been neutralized. His tactical officers were reporting that their targeting computers insisted the human ship was made of crystallized mathematics and folded spacetime. "I think," Captain Chen said thoughtfully, "that a demonstration of proper diplomatic protocol might be in order. The Paradox didn't fire any visible weapons. It didn't launch missiles or activate energy cannons. Instead, 4 of the Nexi ships simply weren't there anymore. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not blown apart. They had been edited out of existence, as if they had never been built. One moment they were part of the fleet, the next moment the universe acted as if they had never existed at all." The remaining Nexi vessels began backing away from the impossible human ship as fast as their engines could carry them. Admiral Zix's voice was shaking when he spoke again. "What are you? What kind of weapons are those?" Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment before answering. "They're not weapons in any sense you would understand, Admiral. We simply convinced the universe that your ships had never been constructed in the first place. Reality is much more flexible than most people realize. Elena felt a cold chill run down her spine. The casual way Chen spoke about altering reality made her realize that humanity might be dealing with something far beyond their comprehension. Captain Vasquez, Chen continued, I'm going to come aboard your vessel. We need to discuss some things that your government hasn't told you about. How do you plan to come aboard? Elena asked. We haven't opened our docking bay. Docking bays are for normal ships, Captain. We don't use conventional transportation methods. Before Elena could ask what that meant, the air in the center of the bridge began to shimmer and bend. Space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a hole in the middle of the room. The opening grew larger until it was tall enough for a person to walk through. Captain Marcus Chen stepped out of the fold in space as casually as someone walking through a doorway. The portal closed behind him with a soft sound like air being drawn through a straw. The entire bridge crew stared in shocked silence. Chen looked like a normal human man, perhaps 50 years old, with graying hair and tired eyes that seemed to have seen far too much. He wore a military uniform similar to Earth Navy dress, but with insignia that nobody recognized. The patches on his sleeves showed symbols that seemed to move when looked at directly. Thank you for allowing me aboard, Captain Vasquez, Chen said with a slight smile. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but our transportation methods tend to be a bit unusual. Elena found her voice after a moment of stunned silence. Captain Chen, what exactly is the UES paradox? That ship isn't in any of our fleet records. Chen's expression became serious. That's because it doesn't exist in your reality, Captain. Not officially, anyway. The paradox and ships like it operate in the spaces between normal space. We fight wars that your Earth doesn't know about, against enemies that your Earth couldn't handle. Dr. Kim stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. The technologies your ship uses violate basic laws of physics. How is any of it possible? The laws of physics aren't the same everywhere, Doctor, Chen explained patiently. In the spaces where we operate, different rules apply. We've learned to use those differences to our advantage. Gravity becomes a tool instead of a limitation. Time becomes flexible. Distance becomes a matter of opinion. Engineer Martinez shook his head in disbelief. But that's impossible. The universe has consistent physical laws everywhere. Chen walked over to Martinez's engineering station and studied the displays showing the paradox's impossible readings. Your universe does, yes, but there are other universes, other dimensions, where things work very differently. We've learned to borrow technologies from those places. He touched one of the control panels, and suddenly all of Martinez's instruments began showing new data. The paradox appeared on their sensors in ways it hadn't before, revealing systems and structures that defied every principle of engineering they knew. Your ship's engines use controlled fusion, Chen observed, studying the engineering displays. Very elegant for conventional space travel. Our engines use controlled reality distortion. We don't move through space so much as we convince space to rearrange itself around us. Communications Officer Wright looked up from his station with confusion. Sir, I'm trying to analyze your ship's communication systems, but I can't find any conventional equipment. How are you talking to us? Chen smiled again. We don't use radio waves or subspace transmissions, Mr. Wright. We speak directly to the quantum field that connects all matter in the universe. Every atom in existence is connected to every other atom. We just learned how to use those connections. Elena felt overwhelmed by the implications of what she was hearing. Captain Chen, if humanity has access to these technologies, why haven't we been told? Why is Earth still using conventional space travel and physics? Chen's expression became sad and tired. Because, Captain Vasquez, knowledge of what we do and where we go would drive most people insane. The human mind isn't designed to understand some of the things we've had to learn. The technologies we use require people to think in ways that fundamentally break normal human consciousness. Dr. Kim was studying her scanners. trying to make sense of the readings from the paradox. Captain, some of these energy signatures are coming from inside your ship, but they're also coming from somewhere else entirely. It's like your vessel exists in multiple locations simultaneously. That's exactly right, Doctor, Chen confirmed. The paradox exists in our reality, but it also exists in 17 other dimensions at the same time. That's how we can do things that seem impossible here. We're borrowing space and energy from places where different physical laws apply. Admiral Zix's voice suddenly crackled over the communication system, filled with fear and confusion. Human vessel Pioneer, what is that ship? Our sensors cannot understand what we are seeing. Our scientists are reporting that it should not be able to exist according to any known principles of physics or engineering. Elena looked at Captain Chen, who nodded for her to respond. Admiral, Elena said carefully, the paradox represents technologies that are beyond current galactic understanding. Zix's voice carried barely controlled panic. We have ruled this region of space for 50,000 years. We have encountered every form of technology, every type of weapon system. Nothing like this has ever existed before. Chen stepped forward and spoke directly to the Nexi Admiral. Admiral Zix, your collective is impressive by local standards, but you've been thinking too small. The galaxy you know is just one tiny part of a much larger and more dangerous universe. Humanity has been protecting this region of space from threats that would make your worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. There was a long silence before Zix responded, his voice barely above a whisper. Protecting us from what? Chen's expression darkened, and for the first time since his arrival, Elena saw genuine fear in his tired eyes. From things that live in the spaces between realities, Admiral. From entities that consume entire star systems for sustenance. From wars that are fought across multiple dimensions simultaneously, with consequences that can unravel the fabric of existence itself. He turned to look at Elena and her crew. Your attack on the Pioneer, Admiral Zix, has attracted attention from places you don't want attention from. There are things moving in the dark spaces now, ancient hungries that feed on conflict and fear. They're coming to investigate what they see as a potential new food source. Dr. Kim's instruments suddenly began registering something that made her face go pale. Captain, I'm detecting massive spatial distortions forming at the edge of the system. Whatever's coming, it's big. Bigger than anything we've ever imagined. Chen nodded grimly. They're here. Captain Vasquez, Admiral Zix, I suggest you both prepare your people for something that will challenge every assumption you've ever made about what's possible in this universe. The real war is about to begin, and everything that's happened so far has just been the opening act. The stars around them began to bend and twist as reality itself prepared to accommodate visitors from impossible places, and Elena realized that humanity's first contact with aliens was about to become something far more terrifying and wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. The age of hiding was over. The age of truth was about to begin.